Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, brought to you by Music Ally, the show that's fascinated by all the fun and games and finances of the music world, as explained each week by me, Steve Lamack, and him, Stuart Dredge. If you want an easy guide to what's going on in the music biz and how it all works, with one or two revealing stats along the way, then here we are every week, back this week after a late summer holiday week off, but with, amongst other things, the relentless streaming success of the Weeknd and their future world domination plans, a surprise hit for Radiohead, new user features on both Spotify and Bandcamp, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but something about Apple Radio as well. But first, this week's big figure. Now, we're reversing the usual roles for this for a week. I've got a big number for you, Stuart, which is 1,216.
Yeah, I mean, given some of the shade that's come in my direction for small, big numbers in the past. But okay, this must be an impressive one. What is 1,216?
1,216 is the number of weeks that ABBA Gold, the best of ABBA, has been in the album chart. Or if you want that figure in a more stark and manageable way, that's 23 years. ABBA Gold has been on the chart, obviously not continuously for 23 years, because it came out in September 1992, I think. So unbelievably, there was a time when ABBA Gold wasn't in the top 100, but in total, it spent 23 years in the album chart as ABBA Gold. And if you want to dig a little further into this, I went through the top 100, which they publish every week. 11 of the albums in the top 30 have been in the chart for more than 200 weeks. That's 11 of the top 30. A third of the top 30 has been there, well, in the chart at least, for 200 weeks. 38 of the top 100 albums this week have been in the chart for 4 years or more, and 10 of them, so 10% of the top 100 this week, 10 of those albums have been in the chart for more than 500 weeks. Do you want to speculate as to what they may be? There's a lot of hits albums, I can tell you that.
Okay. Is it like Pink Floyd, Queen?
Queen, you're right. Queen, greatest hits, you're right.
Who else has had greatest hits?
I mean, there's one or two others which, inevitably have hung around. And one album.
What's the Oasis?
Yes, quite right. So the 10 are Time Flies from Oasis, then What's the Story, and Definitely Maybe. So there's 3 Oasis albums. Rumours by Fleetwood Mac, of course. ABBA Gold, Eminem's Curtain Call, Queen's Greatest Hits, Bob Marley's Legend, and the Arctic Monkeys, Whatever People Say I Am, and the Arctic Monkeys AM album. Both of those have been in the chart for more than 500 weeks. And I don't know what what this says, or what we conclude that these stats signify about the era we live in, and maybe, I guess, how much the impact of streaming familiar songs in recent times has to do with all this. But there you go. Make of that what you will. I mean, while there's a Mamma Mia stage show and the virtual ABBA experience, their run will never end, will it? They'll be there forever. I was thinking maybe we should get in contact with our friend Martin Tolbert of the official charts company and suggest that once an album gets to 1,000 weeks, we just stop counting. I mean, just take them out of the top 100, because you don't need them. We'll just take it as read that ABBA Gold is one of the top 100 selling albums of the week, and then let someone else have a go.
Because they do penalise singles, or not penalise, but they weight singles, don't they? So if you're Mariah Carey at Christmas, it's actually a bit harder for you to get to number 1 than it is for a brand new song.
But I didn't know that.
I think so. There's a weighting, I think, if they're older or been around for a while. But yeah, but it's weird, isn't it? Because I suppose ABBA Gold, 20 years ago, ABBA Gold would be in the chart because it was selling loads of copies every single week, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But now it's plays, and like you say, people aren't going to suddenly, unless Bjorn from ABBA does something terrible to get them cancelled, no one's going to just stop listening to ABBA suddenly.
No. So I can't. Yeah, I'm just going to be there forever. until we do something about it. Anyway, our top 3 stories for this week. Let's start with this one about the Weeknd. So the Weeknd's Blinding Lights has become the first track, talking of streaming, the first track to reach 5 billion streams on Spotify. And in the same week that happened, so reportedly now that the Weeknd, well, they tried to raise like £1 billion of financing off the back, using obviously the catalogue as collateral, to do what with? That's the bit of the story I haven't got to.
No, well, that's the kind of fascinating bit that I'm going to basically randomly speculate about because no one knows.
Okay, right.
But yeah, I mean, so this follows on quite nicely from ABBA because Blinding Lights, like, is I guess the one of the single examples of from the recent age that's equivalent of what ABBA did, for the last 30 years. So Blinding Lights came out in November 2019, I think. So nearly 6 years old, and it's got to 5 billion streams. And to give you a context of the long-lasting nature, in 2020, so the year after it came out, it was the biggest single track in the world on the IFPI's chart. And then in 2021, the next year, it was the 7th biggest track in the world. And in 2022, so 2 years after it came out, it was the 14th biggest track in the world. So it basically hung around for ages, and it's carried on. And it's like some distance ahead of it. So on Spotify, the biggest track is this song by The Weeknd, Blinding Lights. Ed Sheeran's Shape of You is second with just over 4.5 billion.
Right.
And then third is The Weeknd's, again, with Starboy, which is just over 4 billion. So this one bloke has 2 of the 3 biggest songs on Spotify with 9 billion streams collectively. It's kind of insane when you think about it.
Yeah.
Things.
I mean, you could sit at home and just, every second the royalties are just ticking over, aren't they?
Well, that's it. He doesn't have to make any new music. He could just sit on his laurels. When he's not, he's got new music coming out. So almost crazy because I would be at home watching kind of Match of the Day reruns from 1990s, while watching the money flowing. But yeah, so this is going to be making him a lot of money. Like, this is passive income.
Yeah.
But as you said, there was this report the same week saying he's trying to raise $1 billion.
And do we know what for then?
We don't. What this is from Bloomberg, so a fairly good source, and it said he's using his share of his recording and publishing rights because he owns a part share of them as collateral. So it's one of those where he puts up that, and then they'll give him $1 billion, and then they'll make money back from the royalties from his future. And it's a company called Lyric Capital Group, who are one of these financial investment firms that are interested in lyrics. But yeah, I mean, there was nothing on he's not announced it, so he hasn't talked about why he's doing it before. But I mean, he's kind of this interesting guy. So obviously his real name's Abel. He's talked about he's retiring the Weeknd persona after this current album. Right. So he's obviously having a moment in his career where he's thinking, I'm going to do something else. Like, he's not retiring from music, but he's retiring that whole era, that whole persona.
Right.
And he's already, like, he co-founded a label back in 2011. He's done like partnerships in esports and tech. He launched an entrepreneurship scheme in Canada a few years ago for your sort of young entrepreneurs. He's done philanthropy. He's made a TV show. I don't know if you saw this, The Idol, last year.
No, I didn't.
I think it's fair to say he kind of starred in it, and it had mixed critical response. It's fair to say. Right. I'm being very polite there. He's got a new film out that's equally. So he's kind of got his finger in a lot of pies already. And a lot of those pies could be baked up quite bigger with $1 billion.
Well, yeah, I mean, $1 billion, what's he going to do? Run for president?
I mean, oh God, I mean, that'd be, can he? He's Canadian though, isn't he? He can't run for president. President of Canada, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about, like, imagine if you were starting up a new record label, how much money you might have to do it. And now imagine The Weeknd, if you fancy doing like creating a brand new label and signing people and going, he could do lots with that money. Yeah. But I don't know. He might just use it to kind of buy loads of property, or he might use it to, I don't know. He might make the most amazing folly of an album. People make those albums where they spend loads of money. Yeah. Like 400 grand on a timpani solo isn't quite right. He might do that, and that would be wonderful to kind of watch. But he hasn't said.
We'll see. Do you want another inbox to check? Because Spotify, talking of Spotify thinks you do, because it's reintroducing a messaging feature. What tell? I don't think. I mean, obviously, I've never really engaged in Spotify on any level apart from selecting a song and pressing play. So, what was the messaging feature? Why did it disappear, and why is it coming back?
Yeah, well, this goes back to the early days of Spotify when it had this inbox and you could message people and you could send tracks to people. And, it was kind of like a little, a sort of a social element of, and they got rid of it in 2017. And I remember the announcement, I looked it up recently when I was writing this story, and they basically said this feature has very low engagement. Like no one's using it. It's a lot
Yeah.
of manpower to run it. So we're getting rid of it. And then here we are in what's this sort of 8 years later, they're like, we've got a messaging again. And it's a big, but it's only on phones. It's only in certain countries, and you have to be older than 16 to do it. And they've
Okay.
obviously been thinking a lot about what's the worst thing that could happen here. Well, people could start messaging kids, which is something that's happening on other platforms. So they've been very careful, very limited. But the idea is the pitch, and I'll judge your face and whether this pitch is good.
Okay.
It's a way to share songs, podcasts, and audiobooks with your friends and family. And so when you log in, it will show you people you've already connected with on Spotify. So, for example, if you're on a family plan, it will show you other family members. If you've
Yeah.
created a playlist with someone else. And I don't know about you. I mean, like the cynic in me says, if I want to share music with people, I will ping them on WhatsApp, or I'll put it on a social network, or I'll tell them. I mean, God forbid, I'll talk to them. I don't know if I need another way. I don't know if having it within Spotify, I'm not sure how that helps me, because actually, if you use Spotify, there's a little button under every song and album and artist to share it via WhatsApp, Instagram, all those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. But how about you?
I mean, you could fall out with people so very easily, couldn't you? Because doesn't it? So if it shows, does it show you what friends or contacts have been listening to?
No, so it's very much them saying, I want to share this song with you. Here it is. It's not
Right.
about,
Okay.
because they used to have that too. You used to be able to see what everyone was listening to, and then they
I
got
mean
rid of that at some point.
that's incredibly dangerous, though, isn't it? You're listening to what?
I,
I'm unfriending you.
oh,
You're the reason ABBA Gold is still in the album chart, are you? Okay.
yeah, but
Um,
it's explicit. So it's like, I mean, so for people, I mean, I don't know. Maybe people do it, but I feel like if you are someone who loves telling your friends to listen to this track,
mm.
you probably have ways to do it already, and I'm not sure this offers enough to make you change.
How does it?
But
What does this do anything for artists? Would artists be able to essentially set themselves up as a friend of yours and send you music? Is this another
well,
way of distributing a new artist's music, for instance?
Well, this is a thing, I think, because if this catches on and there is an inbox as part of Spotify and people are using it and people are used to checking their inbox in Spotify,
Hmm.
it could be it could be really powerful for music marketing. It could be a place where like artists say, I've got a new release out, I've got some tickets going on sale, I've got whatever's happening.
Mm.
And they could ping you. And like, I think that hasn't been talked about. I don't think that's part of the launch. And I wonder if one reason for that is you have to do this really carefully to
Mm.
avoid it becoming spammy or overwhelming. Like, I don't want an artist I listened to once 6 years ago to be messaging me every day about their new single. So there
Yeah.
has to be some kind of checks and balances in who can use it and how. But I remember I went to this talk. It was last year, I think, by Instagram. And Instagram has this thing called broadcast channels where you can say, I like this person on Instagram. I'm signing up to their broadcast channel. And then they can send you messages saying, hi, I've got this new thing. And the guy at Instagram was saying, this is a really powerful feature. This is how you reach your super fans without any algorithm filtering you out. If they've signed up to you, they'll get your message. It's like building a mailing list inside that.
Yeah.
I mean, Spotify could do that here. It could make this inbox a place where the artist you genuinely love could ping you without running the gamut of the algorithm saying, well, I'm not going to show
Mm.
it to these people. But
Yeah.
that's all entirely me speculating because they haven't talked about that. It's very much about people sharing songs and podcasts and stuff with each other at the moment.
Okay.
But and the other thing is, would you charge artists to use that feature? Because Spotify does have a bunch of tools that it charges artists and labels to use. And I suspect if they were going to let any artist ping listeners, there might be a case for them saying, well, you have to pay us to do that. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Okay. Our third story this week: Apple Music's 6 radio stations may now possibly be reaching a few more listeners thanks to a new partnership which they signed last week.
Yeah, this is why I almost want to pick your brains about Apple Music Radio, because I suspect you've got much more of the gossip than I have. But I mean, should I give the background for people who haven't listened to it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Maybe
definitely.
do. I mean, it goes back a decade, doesn't it? Like to the early days of Apple Music. It launched with a live radio station as part of it. This was one of
Yeah.
the surprises, was that it was a streaming service, but it had live radio. And over that sort of 10 years, it's added 5 more. So there's now Apple Music Hits, there's a country one, a Latin American, dance and chill out. So it has these 6 stations, and they're all live round the clock radio with DJs and interviews and stuff. And they've never really put out any figures. Like, I went digging, and there was a press release about 3 years ago saying they had tens of millions of listeners across the whole network. And that's the only figure that's came out ever since.
This is what has always amused people in the radio industry,
Really?
I think, particularly when Beats launched and everyone said, well, this is the death for radio because, you know, Apple have so much power within the music industry that they'll get all the exclusive first plays and people will flock to it for ease of use. And for a while, for the first 6 months, maybe, sure enough, you know, record labels were sending a lot of their big artists and their, you know, exclusive first plays and that all went to Apple for a while. And then I think they started to realize that maybe not as many people as expected were listening to it. And since then, yeah, it's not like they have to file any figures they don't come out with the radars, which is when, you know, every quarter there are stats for how many listeners are listening to radio stations, normal, you know, old school radio stations. Doesn't apply to Apple, so we've never really known, really. And I'd sort of, I mean, apart from that speculative figure or the figure which they want you to believe, I would have thought they'd have made more of the fact that they had a lot of listeners publicly, if they actually had a lot of listeners. But that might be the cynic in me.
Well, Apple keep things close. They haven't announced a figure for Apple Music for a long time. But yes, I think the thing about it is it's always been part of Apple Music. And so if you didn't pay for Apple Music, you probably weren't listening to it, aware of it, really. It's been part of that. And so what's happened this week is this app called TuneIn. I don't know if you've ever used it or seen it.
No.
It's a radio aggregator. Basically, it collects radio streams from around the world and puts them in one place. So I can go on there and I can listen to UK radio stations, but I can also listen to, I don't know, some of the big American independent college stations, or I can find something from Australia, or you can basically go around the world and find radio broadcasting live and listen.
Right.
And it's got like 75 million users, so it's kind of quite big.
Yeah.
And now it will have those Apple Music radio stations sitting alongside those traditional radio stations. So
right. Okay.
It's kind of the first time you've had Apple's radio sitting side by side with the kind of the traditional.
Yeah. And do you have to pay for TuneIn?
I think you can pay to get extra features, but it's also it's free.
Right. So in a way, the change is that rather than having to be a subscriber or essentially having to pay then to listen to the radio stations, you can get these radio stations for free.
Yeah, so it should boost their footprint. I mean, it's weird because, I've noticed something recently that Apple, they're putting a bit more, I guess, promotional welly behind the radio station. So they've always had artist interviews. They've always had people coming in. And now they do a good job of putting the key quotes out to journalists. So often when I see a story now saying Cardi B said this about her new album, it's come from an Apple Music radio interview. And they're sort of trying to make it like, right, this is a place where artists are talking and things happen. But it's, I think it's weird because, like, in a way, I think as Brits, we maybe kind of have a different view of it because I think we're used to the stations we have on the BBC in the UK where there's no ads and there's a lot of music-specific shows. Mm-hmm. Whereas people around the world who only have commercial radio look at this and go, wow, there's no ads. And I remember when Apple Music, they were like, we've got artists doing shows. And I remember thinking, but we do have that on Six Music. Like, many of your colleagues are actually musicians. But so I think globally, maybe it feels more different to what's locally available than maybe in the UK here. But yeah. But the other thing I was thinking was it's quite a fun contrast because Apple's got live radio and it's making a bigger deal of it and it's kind of still supporting it. And Spotify has its AI DJ where you can put that on and have the AI DJ talk to you.
Yeah.
So and I'm oversimplifying it because Spotify has a lot of humans doing cool stuff and Apple has a lot of clever algorithms too. But it is almost these two visions of how radio fits into streaming in the future. So Apple is like, we're going to build amazing studios, hire loads of DJs and artists and do live radio. And Spotify is saying we can use AI alongside this to kind of make so I'm kind of fascinated by, like, I don't know, I suppose if radio's got a place within streaming, there were these two quite different attitudes of what it might be from the two of the biggest companies. So yeah, it's interesting.
That's the three stories for this week, the three which we picked out as being possibly the most interesting. Having said that, though, any other business? Because actually, there was one which we nearly did as one of our three big stories, which is interesting because it's a massive band who are having a big single, which was never really a big single, and of course, where do we trace this back to? TikTok. But Let Down from Radiohead's OK Computer album is having something of how would you describe it? A streaming moment. That's
It is a chart moment too. Do you know the thing that really shocked me is this came to my attention when Let Down went into Billboard's Hot 100 chart in the US, so the singles chart there, and it's only Radiohead's fourth ever song to reach the top 100 singles chart in the US, which
really,
boggled
is that
me.
right? Wow.
Yeah, like very surprised. I suppose in a way they were an albums band over there, and singles weren't quite as big as they were here. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, so Let Down. When was OK Computer? Was it 20?
I
No,
mean,
it was
everything.
1996. No,
I
97.
you know I can't do years.
Do you know?
Plucking release dates out
Yeah.
of the sky. Me, that's what I do. It was the 90s. I mean,
It was the
that's
90s.
enough.
If
That's
you can
that's all you
remember the
need to
release
know.
date, you weren't
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah.
When I wrote about it, I miscalculated how long it had been out by 10 years because
Brilliant.
my brain refused to believe it was that for. But yeah, so what happened basically? So it was never a single. It was never one of the big songs. It's a lovely song, but it was never one of the big kind of songs. But someone on TikTok, as far as I can make out, someone on TikTok posted a clip of it and almost issued a challenge saying, make the saddest edit that ever exists with it, because it's quite good for soundtracking sad videos. And people have been doing that. Like, I dug some stats out from a company called Chartmetric, who kind of analyze everything, TikTok, Spotify. Apparently, Let Down's been used in more than 464,000 TikTok posts in the last month alone. And they've been seen nearly 256 million times. So that gives you a sense of the scale. Once something blows up on TikTok, there's this culture, I think, of when something's going viral, everyone jumps on that bandwagon and says, well, I've got to use this song in one of my videos now. And that's what's been happening. So everyone's been rushing. And then what happens, and this is like happens over and over again with different songs, that crosses over to streaming. So now on Spotify, there's this whole subculture of Spotify playlists I hadn't heard of before. So there's one called Big on the Internet, which I guess is just what's going viral now. Here's a playlist. There's like 4.2 million people following this playlist. And obviously Let Down is quite high up it. There's a playlist called Sad Indie on Spotify that has 2 million followers. And that sounds like such a niche, but it's not. Obviously, I mean, it's not a niche because sad indie music has always had lots of listeners. But again, this track got put on there once it started blowing up on TikTok, and then so now it has I think it's got 390 million streams on Spotify now, which is, and I counted it, it's more than Paranoid Android, it's more than Exit Music, it's not more than Karma Police, which has 737 million streams, and it's not more than No Surprises, which has 1 billion streams on Spotify. But Let Down is suddenly in the upper echelon of Radiohead streaming hits.
Because it's the soundtrack to people's sadness.
Well, do you know, it's also like, I think people who don't really know TikTok have this view of it as somewhere where people are just doing happy dances to big upbeat dance songs. That's like that whole thing of dance challenges have made it. But it turns out people are also being sad on there to Radiohead, which maybe like everything changes but stays the same. Like people have been having sad moments to Radiohead for a long time. They're one of those bands that unlock your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's true of TikTokers now as it was of people in their bedrooms in the 90s.
Yeah. We mentioned this, the Spotify reintroducing the messaging feature. We also, last week, we talked about, the week before, we talked about Bandcamp preparing to announce a new feature, which is called Clubs. And I think we've got some more details on that now, haven't we?
We have. I like this kind of cadence where we mention something and then before we've forgotten about it, they announce it. So we can come back to it. So this came out. So basically, this is clubs, as in like fan clubs or like-minded clubs. So the idea is you subscribe to a club, and each one of these, there's 4 starting, is curated by a DJ or a journalist. So actually, one of your Six Music colleagues, Jam Supernova, is one of the first to do it.
Right.
And so you pay $13 a month, and for that you get a monthly record recommended by the curator, and you get that, you own it. You get a listening party to kind of, you and the other subscribers can tune in and kind of chat about the record and listen to it together. You get an exclusive interview with the artist behind the record. And then the curator is going to post throughout the month, hopefully giving you other recommendations and talking about, the stuff they're doing.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's weird. It's like what you're the fan of is the person who's curating the club. Although they kind of have like a couple of them have like genre. So one is about jazz, one is about heavy music, so heavy rock metal. I think Jam Supernova is more about eclectic kind of stuff from around the world, but it's all driven by these humans choosing it, and that's quite a big part of this of the pitch. Is like it's not algorithms, it's humans choosing stuff for you that you may love,
Yeah.
and it's worth paying for.
That's an interesting theme, then, isn't it? Going back to what you were saying about the difference between Apple's vision of radio and Spotify's vision of radio, is that Apple's is about people choosing. Well, you would hope the DJs are choosing their own records, and here, it's the curate, as you say, it's the curator again. It all comes back to whether you believe in gatekeepers, I suppose,
Wow.
and also, do you prefer the personal touch? But actually, that engagement is quite good, though, isn't it? If you're particularly, I like the idea of listening parties, and I like the idea of people being able to share their thoughts, about a record, or when it comes to someone who knows their stuff offering insight into a record. That I think that's interesting. Whether
Yeah.
I'd pay what was it, $13.
$13.
$13. I don't know. But having said that, would you pay $13 to sit down with, I don't know, pluck any name out of the air, with Grian Chatton from Fontaine's DC? Would you pay him? Would you buy him two pints? Almost 2 pints, depending
Pint
on
and a
where you
half.
live.
Yeah.
Would you buy Grian a pint and a half to sit in a pub and listen to him tell you about the music that he likes? Yes, actually, you might. So
And
it's I don't know.
I think that there's relatively few people in the scheme of things who have that level of trust in a way. I mean, obviously artists like DJs, journalists, and weird because you're probably in similar networks to me. Like I see a lot of the music journalists who I grew up reading posting online about how they're kind of struggling a bit because the market has gone for the things they wrote for. And
Mm.
it's quite tough, isn't it? But
Yeah.
those people
Oh,
are still
yeah.
around. And I'm always quite excited to see something that can support people who know their shit about music. And so, yeah. I kind of, the one thing I was thinking was I kind of want more than just one recommendation a month. Like I love the idea that they recommend an album and you own it. And you can then you have no barrier to listen to it. But I hope they're also pointing you to lots of other things because I want to. If it's someone I'm surprised, I would like to know a bunch of things they're liking
Yeah.
as well as that
Yeah.
one. So I hope that's
Yeah.
out, and that seems to be the idea. But I think, yeah, Bandcamp. I mean, we talked about them being good eggs in the past, but I think this is. I like the idea they're saying this is not only a cool thing, but we think it's worth paying for, and
Yeah.
that's one thing. Bandcamp people do pay for stuff.
One last piece of other business, I think, which again, I teased this in our last episode. This adding to our thread about badly tracklisted albums, we are indebted to Ben Cardew, who got in touch, among other people. But Ben has raised the bar here somewhat. I don't know how contentious this might be, as we have already challenged one or two big artists over their ability to get an album's track all the tracks on the album in the right order. But in this case, I mentioned Blur's Great Escape, but we're taking it up a notch here. This offending, badly sequenced album is, according to Ben, The Queen is Dead by the Smiths. If you'd like to see his full argument, he's written a piece about what's wrong with the running order, which you can find online, hopefully. But for our purposes, what's wrong with the running order of The Queen is Dead? Well, first two tracks, fine. Then it all goes to pot. I Know It's Over, Never Had No One Ever, shouldn't, says Ben, should not be side to side, because side by side, because too similar. Same time signature, same pace. Also, both of them too early in the album. So, suggests Ben, Cemetery Gates should be, in fact, track 3, followed by Big Mouth Strikes Again. And then there are one or two minor changes to follow. But their biggest mistake, the Smiths, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, should be the closing song. It's a classic album closer, says Ben. And that I'm actually not going to argue with. But if you'd like to, dear listeners, agree or disagree with us or Ben, do let us know. And any other albums that, are clearly, to misquote some famous comedians, they're clearly all the right songs, just not necessarily in the right order. The Price of Music podcast at gmail.com. And finally, this week, music speakers. How do you fancy a pair of speakers made out of something out of this world? Stuart.
Yeah, rocket fuel tanks, actual space rocket fuel tanks.
So
This is not
what is this? Who's? I mean, this for collectors only. I can't imagine this comes cheap.
No. This is like a Japanese company called Han Space Project. I'd never heard of them before, but they've made this speaker called Debris, which I think is a nice touch. Made out of the tank of test fuel tanks of rockets in Tokyo, which is like the home of Japan's space industry. So this company's based there. And they're like these big long canisters with like a floating golden planet-shaped sphere on top. So they look quite spectacular. I really want to know how much they cost. That's the obvious question.
Yeah.
I think they're a concept for now, but I do suspect, like you, it's Elon Musk style money. Although he could probably make them for free, couldn't he? He could just grab a canister from his nearby rocket.
And how big are they?
They're kind of like, they look person-sized, although I haven't seen a person next to them. But they're like you say, statement speakers. Like you have them in the room, and people come in and go, "Wow, look at your speakers with the floating sphere." So it's
you just know who the clientele is for this. I mean,
and then you say, "Did you know they're made from rocket fuel tanks?"
Yeah, it's every marketing company or ad company or something. When you walk into their foyer, there'll be the two statement speakers. That's the people who are going to buy this. It's going to be in office receptions and stuff, or the reception to a building in New York, which is full of creatives. That's where those speakers are going.
This world of high-end speakers is really fascinating to me. Like a long time ago, I used to work for a gadget magazine, and we wrote about speakers. And I once went for this, almost like a primer. They sent me on it saying, you need to go and learn about speakers, because I knew nothing.
Right.
And I had this demo that started with like 250 quid speakers, and then went up to 500, 1,000. I think it ended in like 20 grand speakers. Wow. So you could hear the difference all the way. And then I went home to my much less than two, and was like, "Oh God, my speakers are terrible." So
how much music, though, Stuart, which you had in your collection at the time, would have actually sounded better on £20,000 speakers, though?
Well, that was
a lot of the music I like. I mean, there's. What are you going to hear? More hiss and crackle. Are you going to hear? You're going to hear the drummer's heavy breathing. What is going to improve your average indie record between the price range of 500 and 20,000?
I think maybe it exposes the flaws, which maybe is good or bad. The other thing, those days, I once went to a thing in Japan where I had a demo of, it was DVD audio, which was at the time was that format that came out. I was like, this is going to be the new CD, and it wasn't.
Right, okay.
And they played this out. It was surround sound. They played this album called, I think the band were called Bass, 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 and Bass. And so this was 5 double bass players twanging
right
all around you, and it was the quality of the audio was I couldn't fault it, but the music was terrible because it was just people, but it was just like people twanging basses in different ears. but this was the only thing they had to show off this system because they didn't have any of the new music in it at the time, which kind of speaks to your point. You can, yeah. Anyway, but rocket speakers. Can we have like a wish list, or can we should put a thing out saying if you want to buy us a Christmas present, rocket fuel tank speakers would do. Thanks.
We'll sort something out. We're out of time for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you are enjoying what we're trying to do here, please do spread the word, tell your friends, or leave us a review online if you get a chance. That would also help and would be much appreciated. Alternatively, you can support us via Patreon. In fact, if you sign up to be a super fan, you get an extra 15 minutes or so of us pontificating over various music-related matters. That's coming up next for you subscribers, and will include discussion about a different sort of speakers for kids. I think is one of the topics which we're touching on this week. Oh, and queuing. How long have you spent in a queue for a music related queue. We'll get to that in just a second, subscribers. If you'd like to join us and become a super fan of the show, patreon.com/the price of music. You can also get in touch with us via our socials or drop us a line, including, as I always say, any questions or advice that we might be able to offer you, which we can do in the next week or so. We're going to do an all question special again, I think possibly next week. So anything you don't understand about how the industry works, that you think we might be able to make sense of for you, the price of music podcast at gmail.com. Till next time, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.